Hello guys, welcome to my channel JinnZaar. JinnZaar means Land of the Jinns. My name is Rizwan and I narrate the stories you guys send me at JinnZaar@gmail.com. Guys, as we know, jinns harbor deep envy and hatred toward humans and leave no chance to cause harm. However, God has limited their powers against humans. But sadly, when humans driven by hate and jealousy indulge in practices such as black magic and summon jinns, it gives these entities more power and courage to harm us. Today's story revolves around such incidents, and it's going to be truly horrifying. So I suggest you guys to finish your chores, get into bed, put on earphones, close your eyes, and listen to the story until the very end, because the further it goes, the scarier it gets. The story has been sent to us by a lady named Samra, and she is from Lahore, Pakistan. So let's narrate today's story. Hello Rizwan, my name is Samra and I'm from Lahore, Pakistan. I really like your stories and narration. They inspired me to share my own supernatural experiences with you. These events began 19 years ago, shortly after my marriage, in my in-laws' house. At the time of my marriage, I was 20 years old. My husband's name is Irfan, and he is a well-settled businessman. Irfan is only child of his parents, and his father has passed away a few years before our marriage. So there were only 3 of us living in that house, Irfan, his mother and me. Let me describe the layout of the house. It was a double-story house, about 2,500 square feet and fully covered. Upon entering through main door, there was a guest room on the left, stairs leading to roof on the right, and ahead was a veranda. To the right of the veranda was a kitchen, and at the end were 2 rooms with attached bathrooms. The room on the left belongs to me and Irfan, while the room on the right belongs to my mother-in-law. Upstairs there were 2 more rooms and 1 rooftop. The right room upstairs was used as a storeroom for extra furniture, while the left room was locked. When I asked Irfan about it, he said it was full of old unusable items. Life was going well until strange things started happening. Our daily routine was simple. We would wake up around 9 a.m. and I would prepare breakfast while Irfan freshened up. We would eat together before he left for the office, and I would get busy with the household chores. In the afternoons, me and my mother-in-law would sometimes watch TV on the sofa in veranda or take rest. Evenings were spent cooking and having dinner together after Irfan returned home. One afternoon, while resting in my room, I heard the sound of children playing basketball on roof. I could clearly hear the footsteps and bounce of the ball. Initially, I dismissed it, thinking it was the neighborhood's kids playing outside maybe. But the sound was definitely coming from the roof. I went up to check, but there was no one there. I even looked down in the street, where it was empty. Though I found it strange, I didn't share it with anyone and soon forgot about it. A few days later, something similar happened. I had cleaned the house and the rooftop and was laying in my bed when I suddenly heard the sound of steel utensils falling. The noise was so close that it seemed to come from the locked room upstairs. I went up again, but everything was as it should be. The locked room was still locked and nothing had fallen in the storeroom as well. I shared this with my mother-in-law, but she wasn't surprised. She simply said, "These small things happen, just ignore them. The more attention you give, the more they will bother you." Her words made me even more uneasy. Who are they? And why would they bother me? After that, strange occurrences became a daily routine. Sometimes there would be unexplained noises, and my thoughts would often drift to the locked room above us, as most of the sound seems to be originated from there. One day, when my mother-in-law and Irfan were out, I went to the roof to hang laundry. As I was hanging clothes, I heard faint sounds coming from the locked room. Curious and scared, I approached the door and pressed my ear to it. I could hear the footsteps inside, like children's. Panicked, I went downstairs to search for the key. At the moment, I didn't suspect anything supernatural. Rather, my mind was filled with doubts about my husband hiding something from me. After rummaging through his wardrobe, I found a key buried beneath some clothes. It wasn't on any keyring, just laying there alone. I took the key and went upstairs. With trembling hands, I unlocked the door. The moment I opened it, a cold draft hit me, chilling me to the bone. The room was unusually cold for October, much colder than the rest of the house. Inside, just as Irfan has described, were old trunks, a dressing table with a dusty, faded mirror, and cobwebs everywhere. The atmosphere was eerie but otherwise uneventful until I turned to leave. That's when I noticed footprints in a thick layer of dust on the floor. They were not ordinary footprints, they were bizarre, as if the left's footprint was where the right foot should be, and vice versa. Alongside these prints were tiny, childlike footprints. This sight sent shiver down my spine, and I quickly left the room, locked it, and returned the key where I had found it. Over the next few days, the strange occurrences escalated. One day, I found a laundry I had hung out to dry scattered around on the ground. Initially, I thought the wind had blown it down, but upon closer inspection, I noticed dirt-covered handprints on the cloths. Some of them were torn. I just took the cloths down, washed them again, and just hung them downstairs. Another day, while cooking dinner, I heard someone walking past the veranda toward a room, followed by the sound of the bathroom door closing and the shower running. Assuming Irfan had returned, I turned off the stove and went to check. To my shock, the stove was on again when I came back, even though I was sure that I had turned it off. Just then, I received a call. It was from Irfan. I wondered, why is he calling me while he's in shower? But once I picked up the call, I got to know he's still outside, and asked if needed anything from the market before he came home. Confused, I realized the sound from the bathroom couldn't be him. I went to the bathroom, but it was empty and dry. By now, I was terrified and resolved to tell Irfan everything. I was also scared that he might dismiss my concern or get angry. The next day, Irfan had taken Auntie to doctor. I was laying in my room while I felt like someone was walking in the veranda. And every few moments, there was a very soft knock on my room's door, even though it was already open. I got so scared that I got up and closed the door. Then I performed wudu and started praying. During my prayer, the knocking on the door continued and gradually grew louder and more persistent. Summoning courage, I opened the door, but there was no one there. However, on the door, there was two strange, large handprints in the dust. I became very frightened and decided that I would have to tell my husband about all this today. But at the same time, I feared that he might scold me for opening the door. Around 3 p.m., Irfan and Auntie returned home. Irfan said he wanted to rest for a while and he went to a room to lie down. I sat in the veranda thinking about how I could explain everything to him. A short while later, we heard Irfan screaming from her room. Auntie and I were terrified and rushed to check. In meanwhile, Irfan came out from the room. His face was pale, as if all the color had drained from it. Angrily, he asked Auntie, "Mom, did you open the upstairs room?" She denied. Then he asked me, "Samra, did you open the room upstairs?" I panicked, but I couldn't lie. Hesitantly, with fear, I admitted, "Yes, I opened it. How did you find out?" Irfan, furious, told me that they had strangled me and slapped me. I asked, "Who?" Auntie was pale with fear and held her head and saying, "Samra, what have you done, my child?" I asked what was happening in the house and also shared all the incident that had happened to me, explaining why I had opened the door. Irfan then revealed the entire story and explained that due to envy, someone had performed black magic on her family, which brought jinns to her house. These jinns had such a strong influence that his father lost his life because of it. The person who commissioned the magic also met their demise, but the jinns summoned through the black magic had taken their residence in her home. After much effort by the scholars and exorcists, the matter was settled and the jinns were confined to that upstairs room. That's why it had been locked, to prevent anyone from intruding on their space, which could provoke them to cause harm again. Listening to all this, I was deeply distressed, realizing the mistakes I had made. Irfan quickly called the Imam and explained everything to him. But Imam was out of town and he said that he will come in 3 to 4 days and advised us to play Quranic recitation loudly in the house until then. We followed his advice. Amid all this fear and worry, Allah blessed us with some good news. I found out I was pregnant. Although we were anxious and scared, but this news gave us a sense of hope and courage. We all eagerly awaited the Imam's arrival. The next day, I was in kitchen cooking when I felt as though someone is playing in the veranda. When I turned to look, no one was there. A little while later, it felt as though a small child was touching my hair. Although I couldn't see anything, but I somehow felt the sensation of a tiny hands. I was extremely frightened because until then, everything that had happened was indirect. This was the first time I experienced physical touch contact from the jinns. After finished cooking, I decided to take a shower and thought I would make tea afterwards so that Irfan and I could have tea together once he returned. However, after my shower, when I entered the kitchen, I was hit by a strong smell of gas, as if someone had deliberately left it open so I would light it and cause an explosion. I immediately turned off the gas and went to the veranda, waiting for Irfan to come. When Irfan arrived, I told him about the both incidents. He was very worried, advised me to be cautious, and assured me that he wouldn't leave me alone until Imam arrived the next day. His words gave me comfort. That night, while we were sleeping, I felt the blanket being tugged. I opened my eyes, but for 5 to 10 minutes nothing happened. I went back to sleep, but this time I woke up with a jolt. Someone had grabbed my toe and yanked it hard. I sat up, terrified, and was about to wake Irfan when a bed began shaking violently. Irfan woke up too. The entire room felt eerie and filled with unsettling presence. We got up, turned on the Quranic recitation, and stayed awake all night, unable to sleep. The next morning, the Imam arrived, which brought us some relief. Irfan, the Imam, 3 other clerics, and 1 or 2 students from Madrasa went upstairs, while Auntie and I stayed downstairs. Strange noises were coming from upstairs. After about 2 hours, they all came back down. Imam recited some verses and blew over me and Auntie for protection. He reassured us not to worry, but emphasized the need for caution. He explained these jinns are wicked creation. As long as they are appeased, they abide by agreement, but they also try to harass you in subtle ways, hoping to provoke a mistake so they can harm you. We have had to lock both rooms upstairs permanently. From now on, only use rooftop, but never open those two rooms again. The Imam also gave us a set of rules to follow. First, avoid bringing beef into the house, except sacrificial animal, like on Eid al-Adha. Do not bring beef from the shops until you can mark it. Second, never leave the house in complete darkness. Always keep some lights on. Third, maintain cleanliness in the house, because jinns dislike clean spaces. We agreed and thank Allah for guiding us. Life returned to normal after that, except for some occasional faint noises from upstairs. I avoided going upstairs, except for hanging laundry. A month passed, and 3 days after Eid al-Adha, Irfan's cousin had a wedding in another city. On the second day of Eid, we performed the sacrificial ritual, distributed meat and stored the rest in the fridge. On the third day, we left few lights open in the house and went to attend the wedding, confident because we had followed all the Imam's instructions. We enjoyed the wedding and returned home in the evening after 3 days. When Irfan unlocked the door and stepped inside, he suddenly stopped. Auntie and I followed him behind, but he whispered urgently, "Stop, stop." We froze and asked him what was wrong. He was staring at the veranda. When I looked in that direction, my blood ran cold. In the center of a veranda lay an animal's severed head. What was even more terrifying was that our dark-skinned woman was sitting on her sofa, staring directly at us. She stood up as soon as we saw her and started walking toward us. She was at least 7 feet tall, dressed in a black, unusual outfit that covered her entire body except her face. Her face looked normal, like an overly tall and dark woman, but her eyes had an unsettling, wild look. As she climbed the stairs, her gaze never left us, and her face carried a sinister, bone-chilling smile of triumph. The moment she disappeared from our view, Irfan ran up the stairs and locked the door leading to upper rooms. When he came back down, we were like paralyzed with fear, unable to step inside the house. But summoning our courage, we recited Ayatul Kursi and went. We turned on the TV and played Quranic recitations at full volume. He then threw the animal's head outside and called the Imam to explain everything. The Imam suggested that perhaps some of the meat we received from others was not from sacrificial animal, but he couldn't confirm it. So he advised us to either give all the meat away or put all together in a big pot, take a piece, chew it with our mouth and mix it back, so it all shall be considered marked. Not wanting to take any risks, we gave all the meat away. The next day, Irfan locked the rooftop door leading upstairs. At that point, the entire upper floor of our house had become their domain. For many days we lived in fear, but thankfully no significant incident occurred. About a month later, few months before the birth of my first child, we decided to take a trip to Kalam for some relaxation. We packed our bags and left the other night, since Kalam was about 12 hours drive from our city. I had requested this trip, but ironically, I felt the most exhausted. Sitting in the backseat of the car, I was sleeping when a strange smell woke me up. It was around 3 a.m. and we were still about 4 hours away from Kalam. Driving on the mountain roads, I thought the smell was coming from outside, but when I looked out, I saw a woman standing by the roadside. I felt uneasy but didn't think that much of it, and soon dozed off again. About half an hour later, the same thing happened. I woke up to the same smell and saw another woman dressed black standing by the roadside. This time my mind immediately went to the possibility of being a supernatural entity. Fear gripped me, but I stayed quiet. When we reached Kalam in the morning, we rented a large family room at the hotel. It was divided by a wall with a connecting door. Irfan and I stayed in one room while Auntie stayed in the other. After settling in, we rested for a while to recover from the journey, then had lunch and went sightseeing. The next day followed a similar pattern. That evening, I started feeling unwell and very cold. I told Irfan, "You and Auntie bring food for dinner, but I need to rest," and went to the room alone. I turned on the heater, wrapped myself in a comforter, and quickly fell asleep. After a few minutes, I heard the sound of hotel room open, followed by a familiar sound of keys being placed on the desk, just as Irfan usually did. Then I heard the bathroom door opened and water running, followed by a flush. I was feeling too cold to peek out of the comforter. A few moments later, I heard the bathroom door open again and felt someone sit in my bed near my head. Assuming it was Irfan, I said, "Please eat your dinner, I'm too cold and not hungry." But he didn't respond and simply ran his fingers through my hairs. After a while, I repeated my request again and felt like he got up from the bed. I drifted back to sleep only to experience the most terrifying dream of my life. In the dream, I was at home and heard someone humming an unfamiliar language from the rooftop. Slowly, I climbed the stairs and saw the same woman was sitting on a charpoy cot filled with a weed, running her hands through it as if it was cleaning it. Then she spoke. "Why are you standing there? Come closer." Gathered all my courage, I stepped forward and saw a small, beautiful girl wrapped in a white cloth on the other side of the charpoy. The girl's complexion was pale yellow, as if there was no blood in her body. The woman said, "This will be fate of your daughter if you don't leave my house. This house now belongs to me and my jinn companions." I screamed, "My baby!" and woke up in the cold sweat, trembling with fear and tears streaming down from my face. I called for Irfan, but to my shock, the room was empty. He returned about 5 minutes later. I was confused and terrified. Who had sat on the bed earlier? I decided to tell Irfan everything only after dinner. When Auntie went to her room, I told Irfan about the dream and insisted I would not go back to that house. He tried to console me, saying the jinn were confined to the upper floor of the house. They would not simply haunt us everywhere, and what I experienced might have been a mix of a nightmare and my imagination. But I was adamant about not returning. Suddenly we heard a loud noise from Auntie's room. Rushing there, we found her on the floor. She said someone had yanked her hair so hard that she fell. Hearing this, Irfan finally believed me that what I saw wasn't just a dream. It was a direct threat from the jinn. The next day, Irfan called a friend to quickly arrange a new rental house for us. We extended our stay in Kalam and luckily found a suitable house in 2 days. So we moved from Kalam. However, before going to new house, I told Irfan to drop me and Auntie to my parents' house on the way and settle all the shifting matters himself. After dropping us off, Irfan took the Imam and few others to our old house, where they performed a ritual session. It was revealed that the house has been taken over by a particularly malevolent tribe of jinn, and the women we all seen in the form of human was actually the most dangerous jinn among them. They were unwilling to leave the house at any cost. Finally, it was decided that we would only retrieve our belongings from the lower floor and leave the house for them. Irfan arranged for laborers to move our belongings to the rental house. Once everything was shifted, we held a Quran recitation at the new house, and Irfan came to pick us up after 4 days. About 3 to 4 months after shifting to the new house, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. We were very happy. Over the next 2-3 years, we negotiated with the house owner and purchased this house, where we still live today. Allah has since blessed us with 2 sons and another daughter, making a total of 4 children. Life was running smoothly until about a year ago, when similar incidents began again. My eldest daughter Amna, who turned 17 last year, often studies in the living hall at night. She told me that one night she saw me leave my room and walk past her toward the kitchen. Feeling thirsty, she thought she would wait for me to return and ask for water. However, 5 to 6 minutes passed and no one came back. Curious about what I was doing in the kitchen for this long, she got up and went there, only to find out no one was there. The kitchen lights were off, but the stove was burning. She quickly turned on the lights, turned off the stove, and hurried to her room, only to find me sleeping. Frightened, she rushed back to her room. 2 days later, she saw a woman in black descending the stairs and entering the guest room. Alarmed, she came to inform me. A wave of fear swept through me. Why was this happening again? I told Irfan and he became worried, promising to find a solution the next day. But the next morning, we woke up to find, just like 17 years ago, a skinned animal's head was lying in a living hall. Terrified, we quickly threw it outside before the kids woke up. I noticed an odd expression on Irfan's face, as if he's hiding something from me. I pressed him to tell me the truth, and he reluctantly admitted that one of his friends advised him to sell the old house, which was being wasted. They had it repainted and repaired and sold it to a Pakistani settled abroad. Hearing this, I became furious and argued with him, insisting to return the money immediately. Our lives were more precious than the money. Irfan not only refunded the money but also took a spiritual figure to the old house again to negotiate with the Jinn. They ensured that no one would disturb the property on our behalf anymore. Only then did we find a peace. It has been a year since that incident, and Alhamdulillah, no further incidents have occurred. So guys, this was today's story. My prayers are with this family and their loved ones, as well as with all of you, that God keeps us under His protection and safeguards us from the harm of unseen beings. I hope you guys enjoyed the story. If you would like to share your own experiences with me, feel free to write me at JinnZaar@gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Until next time, goodbye.